6 o'clock, February 13th. Steve Finneran is not going to make it. He's okay, he just can't make it today. Something came up. I'm gonna make a motion to call to order at 6:01.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Approval of the agenda that may be amended. Since Steve is not here, we need 2 for liquor board, and Chris has to abstain. So we're gonna knock number 8 out, and then everything else moves up 1 line. So motion to accept the agenda as changed, amended there.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to approve the special select board meeting of January 30th. Chris and I and Steve were there. There was no action taken other than the informational and town warning and then the town hall purchase necessity resolution for the purchase of the town hall to go to a vote. So, all in favor? I don't see anything there.
No. Aye.
Motion to approve the second meeting on January 30th, which was a regular board meeting, it was a special board meeting draft
That was the public hearing
That was the
portion,
public
to put it
hearing.
on the ballot.
to put it on the ballot. I don't see any changes there. So, we are spelling great golf now, correct?
Not gray.
Not gray. She always thought it was gray. All approved. January 23rd, 2022 was a regular select board meeting. I don't see anything here. Approved.
Yep. Second.
Okay. So that's out of the way. Select board member concerns. I don't have any. We've got enough in front of us right now tonight of stuff to do.
Yeah.
So, citizens input, I'll look to the Zoom people first, if anyone has something that they want to say at this point that's not going to be covered in the meeting. So that would mean like anything TIF related can wait, because we're going to have a whole another presentation. So if anybody has something to say on any citizens input, please raise your hand. Without seeing any hands raised at this time, I'm going to look to the audience here. Does anybody here have anything on the citizens input? I don't see anything there. So I'm going to go to item number 6, which is the TIF ballot article presentation. And is it first you with the ballot, Chet? And then we hand it over to
Well, I mean,
article number 5. Do you want to just read it off? The meeting we had on January 3rd, there was actually the public hearing. This is not a
Correct.
public hearing, this is just a second
Follow-up.
follow-up.
this is the first of the informational
First
meetings.
of informational.
So Article 5 reads, "Shall the town select board be authorized to pledge the full faith and credit of the town to secure indebtedness or make direct payments for the purpose of funding one or more public improvements and related costs attributable to the project serving the tax increment financing district, specifically acquire and construct a municipal water system, construct new roads, upgrade existing roads, and acquire those roads to ensure future maintenance. Related costs, payment of or reimbursement for TIF-eligible related costs incurred by the town for the creation, implementation, and the administration of the TIF district, including costs paid to the outside vendors, consultants, and various related fees and other expenses related to the TIF district, as well as the direct municipal expenses such as department or personnel costs related to creating or administering the district, to the extent they are paid from the municipal and not the education incremental taxes, and are otherwise reimbursed in accordance with the law. In total principal amount not to exceed $47 million, which will bring the total TIF district debt approved since the TIF district's creation to $47 million, and to issue bonds, notes, or make interfund loans for such purpose in one or more series, and expend up to $650,000 for related costs, which will bring the total related costs to authorize use lost by the voters to $650,000, with the understanding that the tax increment from the properties within the TIF district shall be pledged and appropriated for the payment of such indebtedness or direct cost of the improvements.
And then, well, you're making Stephanie be able to share. Stephanie, can you just go over, can you go back up there? What is the difference what is that, I mean, I know what it is, but if you can speak to it about the related cost different? Is it related cost? What is related cost, so everybody can hear that, since we just read it twice?
Project cost is a cost directly attributable to the infrastructure investment. So this would be soft costs, such as engineering or attorneys. The related costs are anything attributable to the maintenance, management, administration of the district itself. So kind of setting up the tool, anything that maybe an attorney advises on this bond language, or in the case of White and Burke, advising on how to get an amendment or a phase filing.
Okay, just so everybody would know that. And then, since we have, how many people on this call, Chet?
22?
23.
23.
Well, 22, because we're one of the.
And then we have the folks in here. We had a meeting, I think, last week, where we came out of executive session and we hired on, because I know one of the concerns that we had heard, but we were already working on, who's going to oversee this project and stuff, and the engineering, because of what happened in Burlington. I hate being compared to Burlington, whatever, because we're not. But can you go through and bring that up, Chet?
Yeah, basically, what's typical for most projects like this, especially with one that's this size, the town or any municipality going to a project like this would hire a construction manager that becomes the owner's representative for the town. And the town has moved forward with a contract for PCI construction, not to be confused with PC construction out of Burlington. But PCI is this, they are an infrastructure construction company, and they are representing the town. They've represented St. Albans and other towns with their TIF districts and the projects going on as an owner's representative. And we signed a preliminary contract for pre-construction and the first phase of the construction fees.
And one of the bigger projects they're working on right now, I believe, is the Burlington School of $190 million.
Right.
Yeah.
This is nowhere near that type of work, so I just wanted to bring that, because I know that was one of the big questions that people are out there. How are we going to handle it? The board and the town has been looking at the finance people. We're looking at this. We're making the moves, and unfortunately, like I keep on saying, we can't. We're in executive sessions trying to find out and going into contract talks, and then when we have it. So everybody that's out there thinking about these things, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we close those questions up and can prove to you that we have been working on it for about a year. So, you want to let Stephanie now take over?
Stephanie, you can pick it up when you're ready.
And can you X out the, oh, no, you can watch people coming in, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll tell me down here that I got some more.
Your turn, Steph.
It says it's loading, but I'm not sure. Chet, you might need to stop your share to look mine.
That's stopping it, guy.
You lost everybody.
What the heck happened?
Do you want to turn and set that back? Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, he stopped. He shut this all out.
No, actually, I think because I'm streaming, I don't know if I have enough strength.
Speaker's been
carry.
changed to echo.
So I might
It
switch
should
it
have
back.
worked by now, yes?
Hold on. I'm gonna go back to the other.
He was going off his Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, whatever.
Because we're not as secure that way, but I'm putting it back on the other way. It should work a little better now.
He doesn't have enough personal hotspot data space.
Oh, man.
Somebody forget to pay the Xfinity bill?
No, it's actually just, there we are. Should be good. It says that I just admitted, I just allowed you to take it. Is it coming? There we go.
There you go,
There you go,
Scott.
lady.
Yeah,
Xfinity was
we-
just paid, Art.
we can't see your video.
I think you have to
You
turn our
can't see
video
us?
on, Chet. See, like on the far left.
Oh, we
Yep.
got it X'd out of there. How like, that's not letting me go.
It's worked.
There
There
we
it
go.
goes. Now you can see
Now we're
us.
on.
Now we're back.
Great,
Hit it,
That's
Steph.
what happens when we switch Wi-Fi.
all right. Chris, do you want to start us out?
Sure. So, as you see at the top, we labeled this Killington Forward, but this kind of all started back in the era before I was here, when there was a plan for a village for Killington. And there's been many plans since for a village and other things. And one of the biggest things that stopped it has been water and water quality. And now we've experienced it down the road. And we don't have water quality, so our big focus is going to be able to give this town the water it really needs, both from drinking water and having sustainable drinking water, and also from a fire protection as well. Many places, including mine, have had to put in private sprinkler systems, but it'll allow other people to, in time, to expand to having fully sprinkled buildings. So clean water has been a big focus with this, along with we have a desperate need for workforce housing. Our housing, as we know, is very tough, and it's been hard to house enough people to work in this resort with all the different businesses. So we're trying to address that. In creating jobs up here, as we continue to expand as a community and build out, we are going to need to have more workforce. And so we're addressing all of these needs as we move on. A bigger piece that we have is truly the Killington Road and how it approaches the resort. And we've addressed a lot of these issues in the process. One of which is I spoke of the water system will come down, and we'll have fire hydrants and water coming all the way down the road eventually. But we're also addressing accessibility to the road. One of the first pieces we're going to take on is the entrance to Route 4 and lowering that grade and making it a safer grade. Expansion of sidewalks. When I first came to this town, we didn't even have sidewalks, okay? Now, all of a sudden, we have one sidewalk, and it gets probably overused, okay? And people don't understand why we don't have them on both sides. So now we will end up having, for a greater majority, sidewalks on both sides of the street and having safe walkways for the number of people that are here walking up and down Killington Road. So all forward, it's pushing us forward. It's pushing Killington forward as we term this whole project, and it's bringing us into the needs that we have currently and for the future for this area to continue to prosper.
And then also, on the road part is, as you're driving up the Killington Road, you get stuck behind a bus, and nobody likes that. There is actually going to be more bus pull-off, so like we have the one right below, or right above West Hill Road, where the bus can pull in, and the cars can continue to go. You know, one thing that I've heard in the last couple of weeks on this water is like, why is it always just the main strip or whatever? But you gotta start somewhere, and this is where the TIF is going from. I mean, the TIF allows us to use these funds to do the main transmission. We are coming through Old Mill Road and then H Road, and then bringing it down through the woods there that will pop out over towards Ravine Road, which, you know, we get this going, looking forward as a town. You know, one of the discussions way early on was bringing it down through Roaring Brook Road and then giving it off to a lot of other spots through there or whatever, because everybody needs water. It's a matter of finding how much water is out there. We tried doing this when I was on the Selectboard back in 2010, 11, and 12. And when we started looking at water for everyone, then it just got crazy. You know, so you got to start at a spot, and this is the perfect way of using tax incremental financing to do it. I want to bring up a fact here of, no matter what, when we go for Article 5, if you vote yes, we get this thing going. You vote no, we still need to get the sidewalks fixed, we still need to get the road fixed, And we have all this other stuff there, so, you know, I mean, people that think this is gonna raise their taxes, it's not. I mean, we've gone through the development agreement with everybody, and we'll do it again tonight, but the developer has signed a document, a development agreement, stating that we can raise the value of the property up to cover the bond payments, okay? So, to me, it's a solid plan. You know, the end of the world, whatever, I don't go to the end of the world kind of scenario. But it's a solid plan, and it allows us to use the education fund from that area of the growth to pay for not just water for a village, but water for everyone else in town to get onto it, and to pay for the sidewalk and the roads that have to be done within the next 5 to 10 years anyway, I think the plan
Yeah,
was.
basically, the repaving that we did in 2014, that we took the bond out, the bond matures this in fiscal '24, which was paying that off. And at that point, because it's Killington Road, typically that's an 8 to 10 year redo cycle, and this next cycle, we were gonna have to do a complete reconstruction anyway. And we're required to look at complete streets based on state rules, which means, you know, looking for bike and pedestrian accesses, bus pull-offs. All of the Killington Road portion was going to happen anyway. The real variable in the whole thing is water. And without water, realistically, the town, because the business center of Killington Road is where what drives everything, like even the people who live off of Killington Road, all of the revenue is generated along Killington Road up to the resort. And if we don't do it, we're not gonna grow that area. It's been flat for 11 years, our grand list. So, you know, the question is, people will ask, can we afford to do this? And I will ask, can we afford not to do this? I mean, realistically, we
What were
don't
we
have an
budgeting
option.
for the
That's where I was gonna go.
road?
The road was in 2018 or 19,
Number
it was
you were
12
putting.
million.
12 million.
12 million.
18, 2008, that was before COVID.
That was before what we've just dealt with, yes.
Yes,
So we're
So-
probably closer to 18 or 20 million, which is about where this is coming out.
you know, so.
But
do
that
you-
would be out of our,
That would be a bond. Out of our pocket, we
that
would have to pay
bond
that as
for,
taxpayers.
and we're using state dollars.
Correct. So that's the beauty of the TIF program. So, you know, I just wanted to throw that out there, that this is really, we gotta replace the road, we gotta replace the sidewalk. So do you want a $15 to $20 million bond payment to go towards your municipal tax rate? Or would you like to have the TIF come through and have the 70% of the education fund?
It truly is, and as much as this may sound, you know, like the Chicken Little thing, it truly is our one opportunity to not have to pay for it as taxpayers. I mean, the stars have aligned both with growth in the area, the desire to build the village, the ability, the amount of infrastructure funds that are out there to get. I mean, the reality is, this is a not to exceed debt service problem, but we have a multitude of areas where we may be able to get additional grant funds. We're continuing to apply. The goal is, you know, we may end up with, at the end of the day, over $20 million from the SRF fund. We don't know. That was what their original projection was, but it got modified, and we're gonna be watching as it goes. We're
Well,
moving
it did
forward
get
with our grant
modified. We
application.
learned a lesson that they can only give you, and it's over X amount of years, and
Right.
you can't commit. And, you know, so the next year that we get into,
Right.
we're being told we're gonna get equal or greater, and it
Right.
keeps on going.
Let's,
But we're being upfront with everybody by saying, this is what we have today in grant funding that's not payable, and this is the top number that we need for this section. So I'm not gonna sit here and say, there's another section that comes from Ravine Road down, but that's also funded through the TIF, the road and the sidewalks also from when they start building up there.
Not the water part, though.
Yeah.
I said the road.
Okay, I just
let's,
want to make sure that's
why don't we
clear.
let Stephanie
Yeah.
present and then kind of get on the
to the
TIF
front.
stuff so that everyone really understands what the TIF is.
Yeah, some of what I say is gonna be redundant. You guys took a lot of my talking points, man.
We're used to
okay.
listening to you.
I know, that's okay, it felt good to listen. So for those I haven't met on the call or in the room, I'm Stephanie Clark. I'm a consultant to the town from White and Burke. We are helping on the TIF project, on the TIF district, as well as on this project in particular. So tonight I'm going to go through basically a run through of the Killington Forward Initiative, generally what all the phases look like, what phase 1 looks like, which is what is on the ballot, how it's funded, what the ballot item consists of, which has kind of been covered a little bit, and then we can take some questions. So I'll go through this. If you can hold your questions, that'd be great. We'll get to them after. And we are also, I'll get to that, yeah, we'll go from here. So the Killington Forward Initiative consists of 4 phases. It's a bunch of work all phased over multiple years. So the project, as Jim and Chris both said, consists of water and road. And I say the project because that's really the town's piece of this, which is the infrastructure pieces, water and road. Phase 1, which is what we're talking about mostly tonight, which is what's on the ballot, you can see on this map in blue. And then the water comes up from Route 4, and the dark colored lines are all the water, comes down Killington Road, all the way to the intersection with Route 4, and shows a little bit more onto Route 4.
Then we got
Everything
that
in
little
the-
spout with the school, right?
Yeah.
And, oh, correct, yes, correct. It has this leg that goes out to the school as well with water. Now, again, this is the full Killington Forward Initiative. This is multiple years, multiple funding sources, and multiple phases. In the highlighted color is the road, and then you can see this is blue for phase 1 that comes all the way down to, it stops here at the property line of SP land. It continues, the road project continues all the way down Killington Road to the intersection with Route 4. So as I said, this is kind of high level overview because there's multiple phases, there's multiple funding sources, but what we're focused on tonight is the phase 1, which is what's in the dark blue, the light highlighted blue up here, and then down at the bottom of the road. Again, sorry, I should have oriented. North is actually at the top of the map, even though that's the bottom of the road, but to orient maps north-south. And so what we're talking about when we talk about the TIF district, that is one of the funding mechanisms we're using to cover the cost of this project. And if you see here in yellow shading, that's what is called our TIF district. That has been approved by the state. It is, I will get into what TIF is in a moment, but that is our TIF district. And most of phase 1 is within that TIF district. So phase 1, as I just showed you, consists of the water system up from Route 4 and down through the village and to Ravine Road. It also includes a dry line of water down in the area at the intersection with Route 4 up to Anthony Way. We're going to be doing the road improvements down there as well. So road from Anthony Way to Route 4, as Chris said, is going to be regraded, and at the same time putting in a dry water line. There's also going to be, as you saw in the map, I can go to this map real quick, but as you can see, the road improvements happen up in the village as well. We're creating a roundabout, creating a new road called Road H, is its current title, and extending Old Mill Road. Those will be improvements to that section of the road as well. But let me go back. So the resulting development, most of what's making this possible too, is the Great Gulf development of Six Peaks Killington, which is the first phase of which is 180 new housing units and approximately 30,000 square feet of commercial, which is the long-planned village. This is their first phase that will help fund our ability to do this infrastructure work, and our infrastructure work is what's making the project feasible. This is also the beginning of the access to municipal water, as Jim said, coming down to Ravine Road.
So Stephanie, just so we get everybody on that, it's saying resulting in 180 new housing units, but if I was the public, I've been reading in the paper 235, I think.
39.
239.
Correct. And that's what they have Act 250 approval to build.
And we only need the
But
180.
But the first phase that we need in order to make the infrastructure numbers work is 180.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. We'll get into what that means here in a moment. So the timing of this, just so everyone knows, we're holding this bond vote, assuming it passes in March. We will be breaking ground in June. The water project will begin. That is a 2-year construction cycle for water, so ending in 2024, maybe early 2025. And the road project then begins in 2023 as well with the Anthony Way to Route 4 section. The second phase, the second season of the road in this first phase is up at the village, happening in 2024. Six Peaks Killington construction will begin in 2023 as well. And when those units come online will be very dependent on some of the construction environment, but as we'll talk about a little bit with the funding, our funding becomes secure as soon as they sign, and become owners of the land. So to get to how this is funded and how and why this is not going to affect the taxpayer's tax rate, we are taking the total project cost and reducing it by grant money, or in this case, we have a grant. We also have a forgivable loan from drinking water. So 2 water sources of funding, $2.3 million in ARPA grant and a $3.6 million forgivable loan, which is essentially a grant for the emerging contaminants. That's intended because this water system will be remediating water issues, water quality issues. And then we'll be taking out a TIF bond for $47 million. And that is going to be repaid using TIF, which I'll explain in a moment. That $47 million is what's being voted on. And that is the high end of what may be the debt. But we're also pursuing other sources of funding constantly. We have at least one, almost 2 applications already submitted, already well in the queue for additional funding. So that's the high end, that's the high top of the range, but we expect that to continue to come down. So to explain TIF, for anyone who doesn't know, tax increment financing, it's a tool that's authorized by the state of Vermont. It is a financing mechanism by which the municipality invests in an infrastructure project. And then as a result, the resulting private development that gets built then generates new taxes, incremental new taxes, value that didn't exist before. And the taxes on that new value go to pay down the debt service on the infrastructure that has been built. The key is that the town can retain 70% of the education fund portion of those new taxes and 85% of the municipal portion of those new taxes to pay down that infrastructure debt. So that's a large amount of money that can go to paying down the debt, and it's not anything new, it's not any new tax to the taxpayer, and it has not existed before, so it does not cut into the amount that goes to the education fund, it does not cut into the amount that is already going to the general fund. But for this infrastructure being invested in by the town, the private development could not exist, could not develop. So that's the explanation. In Article 5, we are asking for voter permission to incur that debt up to $47 million. But as I said, we don't believe we will go up that high because we are continuing to look for other sources of money, grants, forgivable loans, and that money is continuing to be sought. So I believe that's all of the points I had for this particular phase and this project.
Yeah, so
And
I have a question before they start getting into it.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the, where it's at the 2.3 million offer and all that screen for a second? Yeah, so can you just go through, like, this is not all just for the water getting up to, because there are certain areas that we're using some of this grant money and the emerging drinking to do the Anthony Way to Route 4 that's not included in the TIF, and then I think the
correct.
water going
The total price tag of this project is over $50 million. And using grant money to do the pieces of this project that are outside of the TIF district, because we cannot use TIF money outside of what that yellow section was, this grant money will help to pay for those sections that are outside the TIF district. And we are not even getting into the future phases of this project that also extend outside of the TIF district, but you should know that we have approval from TIF to use TIF to fund all of the road that goes all the way down Killington Road.
Yeah,
It
so,
does not cover the water, so we'll be seeking other grant sources for the water.
right, so the water underneath the TIF kind of ends at the end of the property of just above the lookout area. But we're running the water in this first phase down to Ravine Road, which is past that area. And we're also running a dry line from Route 4 to Anthony Way. So we're prepared to bring the water
And
up.
so, Stephanie, could you also just talk a little bit about the TIF bond itself? Okay, so we have a bond out there for 47 million, but our agreements and how that will be paid for.
And number one, it's not 47 million right away.
Yeah.
It's-
That's right, it's over time, and the town has a development agreement with Six Peaks Killington, with Great Gulf, the developer of Six Peaks Killington, that they will ensure a minimum taxable payment that will generate enough taxes to pay the debt service on that 47 million. So we have coverage. That 180 units we referenced before is the amount that is needed to be constructed to be able to satisfy the debt service.
And when if they sell out the first 235 or 39, that just speeds everything up because we only need the 180. So those other buildings are, whatever gets put on above the 180 is just going to, we still get the 70% and give the 85% from the town side. So it will just speed the bond payments up. And since that yellow map, if they move outside, which they don't have Act 250 yet, but when they do approach for that, any of those that come on during this bond period would be included in the payback also. So
And
it's a great program.
could you also just address a little bit of the strength of Great Gulf, who we've chosen to put great faith in? Steph?
Sure, I can talk to the fact that this development agreement was reviewed at both the local level, but also at the state level. And that when we have to get TIF approval, we had to go through the Vermont Economic Progress Council at the state level, and they had a third-party consultant also review the development agreement to understand the strength of the agreement and to validate the risk mitigation for the town. And so we have authorization from the state and including their sub-consultant who reviewed this agreement. So we have our attorneys who also who wrote the agreement and have reviewed the agreement. So a lot of different eyes on this as a risk mitigation measure.
So I think like the select board just wanted to throw some things out before everybody started asking questions, but Brian Addison has his hand raised on Zoom.
Yeah, my question is, is the incremental property taxes that are destined to pay the bond, the financing, is that just from the new housing, or is that because of the increased appraisals on the existing properties?
Good question. It is anything over the baseline. So when we apply to TIF, we have to set what's called the original taxable value, the OTV. So what property value exists there today within that district, which is just the properties owned up at the base of the mountain in that yellow area. And then it's anything new on top of that, which includes any new development. It does include if any properties are reassessed and the higher values that those any incremental value for the reassessment.
Within the district, though, only
I want to
within.
go back to that map.
Yeah,
So just within the yellow area, any property in the yellow area.
That's all up in the development area, so in that area, the
It's-
development and the ski resort.
It's only SP land owned land
Yep.
and the resort owned land, which will then become owned by Great Gulf once this goes through. And so any new appraisal, a new assessment on their property would also become incremental taxes as well as any development.
And that's just like
That doesn't apply to the rest of the town.
And that was just like,
I'm not saying it would not apply to the rest, any of the
Correct.
other existing properties.
Correct. Any other existing properties, any reassessed value, the incremental taxes coming from that will go to the general fund.
Okay.
The rest of the town's properties that we all individually own will continue to go to the education fund, 100%, and 100% of the municipal to the town.
Cool.
Is there anybody else online that wants to raise their hand and ask a question?
Could we get?
Go ahead, Art.
I had to come off mute.
That's okay.
Quick question on, or a couple of questions, really. The resort was, or has been, a partner with SP Land since the acquisition by Powder. Is the resort continuing as a partner in this project?
I'll leave that to Mike Salamano. He's somewhere on here in the Zoom. Mike?
That's putting him on the spot. I don't know if he's,
Well,
oh, there he is.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
yes.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, you're referring to some co-ownership that we have between SP Land and the resort. That piece hasn't, we haven't figured that legal piece out yet. Michael and I have talked about it, and I think there will be some co-ownership, but I'm not sure we haven't worked the final detail on that. But obviously we're huge partners because the whole project's happening in the middle of the resort. So you're talking about more of the legal structure of the entities, and that piece hasn't been fully defined yet.
Okay.
But I don't really think that particularly really has too much impact on this project. It's sort of an interesting fact, but it's not really, I don't know if it has much bearing on this discussion particularly.
Okay. Another question on the retention of taxes, incremental taxes to pay for the bonds. I think it was said that we get to retain 70% of the education tax and 85% of the municipal tax.
Correct.
Where's the other 15% of the muni?
It's going
That
to
goes
the,
right to your general
it
fund.
goes to our general fund, and the 30% goes to the state education. That was in the beginning, Art, where we were doing the presentations early on, that, I forget the number, $20 million was going to the education, still over 20 years or whatever it was, and some $4 million or 2.8 million, I forget what the numbers were being retained by the town for the town to do other lowering property taxes or going from there.
Just go in general fund.
Just go in the general
Yeah.
fund.
I'm glad you brought that up, Art, because that is an important point to mention, that you get this additional, there's still increment flowing to the general fund, and there's still increment flowing to the education fund, and further to the point of the strength of the TIF program. But for the town making this investment into the infrastructure, this development couldn't happen, and that extra 30% wouldn't be going to the education fund, and that extra 15% wouldn't be going to the general fund. And the thinking with that somewhat is to use the 15% to help with any other operational costs that might be coming up as a result of the the investment. So, if you build up put some of that towards your operations of the water system, for example, but it doesn't entirely, in this case, at this scale, wouldn't be entirely consumed for that.
And I just want to make sure, because like that, I don't know what, this water system is going to have a public works department, and the O&M is going to come from those that are hooked up to it. We're not going to take it from the general fund.
Correct, they'll be
That I
hookup.
could assure you, with me sitting at this seat, that money comes into the general fund to do stuff for everybody in town, not for people on the water. The water's gonna come down, you hook up to the water, I will be getting an annual bill, just like I do from the sewer, to pay for the running of that water system. I'm not asking for somebody outside of the water system to pay for it. That's not how it's gonna work.
It will be set up exactly like our sewer systems are. They're separate districts, and the users pay.
Right, but I like what Art's question there about the 15% and the 30%. I just come back to that number of the 180, but there's 235. I mean, there could be a point if all 235 come on, Stephanie, that instead of being 20 years, it could be 15 years, because we get an audit done, like what, year 5, year 10, year 15, or whatever they do?
Year 10,
Year
yeah.
10, and they can say, all right, you have this many units on, you've already got this much money in the bank, you've got enough to pay the bond for the years to close out, and they could say, okay, you got enough in there now, you're not gonna continue to raise to put in the bank. You've got enough. You're gonna make your payments yearly based on what's there. We're gonna retain 100% of our education fund every year now on the new stuff coming in each year, and the town gets to get 100% of the money coming in from there also. So.
Exactly, and basically, as soon as you've paid off your debt, all of the incremental taxes then flow the way that they would normally to the education fund and your general fund. So it's an investment into your grand list, essentially, because you'll have a much bigger grand list at the end of this.
Got another one on?
One last question. With the minimum TIF assessment that Great Gulf has agreed to under the development agreement, does that, when you say it covers debt service, is that interest and principal?
It is. Correct.
She answered that fast.
I wouldn't be allowed to have the job I have if I didn't.
Why don't
We
we
didn't cover
introduce
interest.
Michael?
Absolutely.
Well, no, I was more interested in
Yeah.
some people refer to debt service as interest
No, yeah.
only.
Financing
I was
only.
more interested in the principal.
Yeah.
This is not gonna be another interest-only payment deal. This is principal and interest. So,
There may be interest-only payments initially just because of the way that the bonds are structured, but otherwise it's, it covers in total the
Okay,
full. Yep. Good
All right.
question.
thank you.
does anybody else have any questions online? Steve Feiner? Can you see us all now this time?
Yeah, my question, maybe it's looking too far down the road. So when enough funds is generated to pay off the TIF, whatever that number turns out to be, then 8 years down the road needs to be repaired, then that money would come from the quote increased taxes to the town. That makes sense?
Correct. And, I think part of that 15% we were talking about before, the 85% goes to the TIF fund, that 15%. Conceivably, the town could use part of that 15% to be doing a capital reserve budget.
What I think you've seen in the last 6 years, Steve, is the board and the town have been putting a sustainable budget together, and we're planning out what we need to have for each year and building up. I can tell you that we're not building a road with TIF funds that is only going to last 8 years. I've already had that conversation. It's not going to be built with the junk material that we used to build with in 30 or 40 years ago. This is going to be a spec that it will last and hold up any construction, any trucks, anything going up there. The beauty of it is that, like you had asked the question, when this TIF is paid off, well, then we're getting 100%, and hopefully there's more than 180 units, maybe there's 300 units. 300 units at whatever they're selling for up there is probably adding 50 to 60% to the grand list. And we're only taking over how much extra road in this deal that we really do need, because we should have it.
A mile and a half,
A
maybe.
mile and a half of road. So if we can grow our grand list $350 million just to take on an extra mile and a half of road, when we currently have how many miles in this town that we take care of?
Paved is 21, total is 52.
Yeah, so 52 total roads that we're raising enough tax money based on a 50-cent tax rate or whatever at this current time, or a $700 million grand list. Our grand list goes up to $1 billion. We're only adding on
Well, basically,
one and a quarter road, but we're almost 50% into the grand list. So your taxes will come down overall.
yeah, basically, when we look at the our sustainable funding for the roads, it adds between $75,000 and $90,000 on the annual basis for the actual road
Right.
upkeep.
But when the bond's completely paid off,
We'll have,
it's
we'll
adding
have,
$300 million.
right.
Or
I mean,
$285
we're adding
million
way
in the
more. I
numbers.
mean, the expense is going to be minimal compared to the, the
Tax
goal
base
is
up.
that 15% should cover us actually starting to plan for the sustainability in the future. We'll actually be able to incorporate that, and then as soon as the bond is paid off, we're golden.
Which I kind of like, one of the other things that I hear out in town, it's like, some folks think that the CLA is actually to the municipal tax rate. No, the education tax folks of the state weren't, what your house is valued at, we value it at 100%. What the state values that at is valuing it at 61% up. They get to put the penalty on. We are not. We are going off your actual grand list. So,
It's basically the budget divided into the grand list.
right.
So there's, the grand list is a factual thing, there's no adjustment to the grand list. You take the total amount of dollars we need in our budget, and you divide it into the grand list, and that
And
becomes
that
your
is the
rate.
municipal tax.
That
But
is the
when you go to
municipal
the
tax.
education tax, that's when they start using a CLA. So I can't really control, or this board can't control the education tax as much as we can control the municipal tax rate. And, this is just going to add to our municipality, and, I think Michael's gonna do a great job with Great Gulf and come in here and build way more than 180 units in the first 6 years. I think we're gonna be up into like 300 units within the first 6 years. And, it's going to be added, if that happens, this bond will be paid off in 12 to 15 years instead of 20 to 30. And then we're gonna be retaining 100% of that money to, further on where we made moves to the police department, we made moves to the fire department and bringing people in, and expanding the water line and expanding the sewer line like I would like to see happen in this town to other areas.
The reality is our tax rate will drop.
Tax rate should drop at that point there. I can't control the education, that's the governor. So, any other questions, Steve?
Good.
No, I asked it because I wanted what you just did explain so more people could hear that portion of it.
Oh,
I
you
think
mean-
people
What do
are
you,
concerned about it
yeah.
causing more expenses later on, when in fact, we have a better ability to pay for more functions and improvements because of all this.
Oh, you threw me a bone, huh? Threw me an easy one.
I've never been against it.
I
I
know.
just always ask questions.
Thank you.
Let's explain Great Gulf.
Yeah, so Michael, since you're here, I don't see any other hands going up at this time. There's a lot of new people on this call, and Michael Snade with Great Gulf. If you want to just give a little overview of you and your company, Michael? You got on mute, though.
Just like last time. Hit the button.
Yeah, sure. So I thank you very much for the opportunity to present tonight. And for those of you who don't know me or know Great Gulf, Great Gulf was started in 1975, and it is a multidisciplinary development company. We have Great Gulf Homes, which builds low-rise, single-family townhomes, and with over 80,000 homes built to date. We have a company called Home Technology. There's two divisions to it. One does our own in-house design. The other is a factory that actually builds the walls, floors, systems that go into home building. It's a home panel manufacturer. That facility is roughly 200,000 square feet, and virtually all of the work in that facility is done by robots. The workers in the plant pretty well just oversee the work by the robots. We also own Ashton Woods, which is a very large single-family home developer in the United States. In fact, they're the second largest privately held home builder in the United States, and they have 50,000 homes built to date. We own a commercial division called First Gulf that has developed 11 million square feet of commercial, office, and industrial space, with about 6 million square feet that is currently in the pipeline. We have a high-rise home building division and build so many high-rise projects that we actually have an in-house project management company called Tucker High Rise. And we own a number of resort residential properties and have established a new group within the overall Great Gulf group of companies called the Great Gulf Resort Residential. And we have 3 major projects here in Ontario, and would like to expand to the Killington project. I personally have had a great deal of experience with Killington. I've been a skier since I was a child, and I became a ski instructor, I think, when I was around 16 years old, and then continued for probably 20 years before work got in the way of ski instructing, and I had to work weekends many times, and so I couldn't commit the time to the resorts that I would have liked to. Today I'm a master ski racer, and I have been CEO of a company that owned 2 ski resorts properties, one in Ontario, one in California, and then we also owned the most successful ski resort village in certainly in this part of Canada, called Blue Mountain Resort. I first started coming to Killington in the mid-1980s. My wife and I had lived in Calgary, which is sort of the Denver of Canada. And there are a number of great ski resorts in the Rockies in Calgary. And when I was working there, I was actually continuing with my part-time ski teaching career. And so I taught on weekends in the Kananaskis Valley and loved it. Loved skiing there. Great snow, great hills, beautiful scenery. And so when we came back and moved to Toronto, my wife and I looked for a place to go visit. And the very first place that we visited here in the East was Killington Resort. That was in the mid to late 1980s. And then I stayed in Sunrise. I stayed in, I think they were called Trailside townhomes over the years, and have visited Killington a number of times. So when SP Land first approached us, I was working with a company called Replay at the time. When they first approached Replay, I knew exactly that Killington was the best mountain in the East, that it did not have the kind of ski resort village that other places were able to develop. And so there was a tremendous opportunity for us to be able to become involved and really do something special at a very special ski mountain. So then when I left Replay and joined Great Gulf to be the president of the Resort Residential Group, I instantly went to the board and said, hey, there is a tremendous opportunity to get involved in. That was just about a year ago. I think I was looking at the project with Replay for over 2 years, maybe 3 years. And so tonight has been the culmination of a great deal of study and a great deal of work. I've worked very closely with your select board and worked very closely with Stephanie throughout the whole development agreement process. And I think this is truly a win-win. Win for us as a developer, but win for the town, each resident within the town. I think this is doing something very special both in terms of bringing a new development to the base of Killington, but also bringing in a much improved Killington Road and water infrastructure for all.
So Michael, when
Did
you...
I cover it all? If
Yeah,
not,
I think you did, but when you left, like someone might be sitting out there, you first came to the town of Killington for this development, like you said, underneath replay, some 3.5 years ago, I think I met you.
yeah, at least, yeah.
Right, I mean, the reason why you had left was because that, you know, the project got changed. Instead of SP Land staying around and, you know, piece by piece giving off or whatever, they were looking for someone to come in and take it out completely. And you had a great relationship with Replay and were working with Great Gulf at the time, and you made the move over.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, so that's it, that's true, Jim, and I should probably point that out. Originally, SP Land was going to stay on as the master developer, and so they would do all of the horizontal work, and then we would come in as the vertical developer, take down parcels and work with them on the horizontal roads and infrastructure servicing, etc., and then do the vertical development. But just about this time last year, maybe 13 months ago, we started talking to SP about a change, and that change was they were looking for someone to acquire all of their development lands right off the bat. That was a little too much for Replay to be able to do, and that's where the opportunity with Great Gulf really came to fore. Because Great Gulf, being such a large company, has the ability to acquire all of the lands and do everything that's necessary from horizontal and vertical development.
so those of you in town that are voters and don't like SP Land, please vote yes. That's my joke for the day.
I, for one, have nothing but admiration
Wow, you're
for
tough.
everything that SP Land, together with Mike Solomano's team.
Oh, I think they're great too. I'm just trying to get a couple other votes for those that don't like them, that's all. You know, and then Michael, when you had spoke about how much is skiing, I know a couple of the other questions, and maybe Mike Solomano could kick in with the relationship that he's building with you. You know, people are thinking, you know, oh, they're just gonna build this mega whatever and forget about those day skiers and everything else, and what really makes Killington here, that I say. And I mean, I had some conversations with you over the last 3.5 years of, you know, no, that's not your plan. And if phase 1 doesn't satisfy people, you're not going to be. Then phase 2 is useless, right?
Yeah, so we definitely have to protect and enhance the experience for the existing day skiers, along with the destination skiers and the purchasers of our residential units. Killington has the capacity to be able to grow its skier visits, and that growth will take place by holding on to all of its day skiers and then adding the additional skier visits that primarily happen midweek when the resort has considerable capacity. And those new purchasers of units within the development, along with the people that rent their units, will augment the current day skier capacity. And those day skiers are very, very important to the resort, very important to us. In fact, many of our clients will come from those day skiers. So keeping that part of the client base satisfied and happy going forward is a key component of our plan, together with Mike.
Thank you. Mike, you want to throw anything in there?
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is, you know, I think if you know what we've worked on in the last 10 years, I think pretty much everything we've been focused on is improving the guest experience, right? That is pretty much all we've, you know, our singular focus. So, you know, if you look at on-mountain improvements with the tunnels and bridges and the lift, moving people around the mountain better, those are things that we've been focused on and we're going to continue to focus on, right? And Michael, as he just articulated, understands that we need to do it right during phase one, or there won't be a phase 2 or 3. Nobody's going to buy into a village that they don't think is working well. So it's important for us as well as Great Gulf. And I think the other thing is having that village area, for us, it's going to be additive to the experience, right? I think if we do it right, it's going to be a draw for everybody. So it's not just for people that are buying a unit. I think that's one of the pieces people miss out. It's not like if you need to be a person who's buying into a unit. I mean, I think anybody that skis there, or even if you don't ski and you just live in town, it's going to be a great experience coming into the village with entertainment and a lot of activity, and I think a lot of fun things happening. So I think no matter who you are, this is going to be a positive, at least in my mind.
So is there any other questions from the Zoom side here before I go to the audience inside? Go ahead,
Andre?
Andre.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can somebody touch a little bit about the dollar assumptions that are embedded in the TIF payout structure, and how these dollar assumptions will insulate the town taxpayers if these assumptions aren't met? So just in terms of the basic notion of a $47 million bond with, let's say, a 20-year amortization of some sort, and whatever 3.5 or whatever the current rough assumptions of interest rates are. It looks like there's about a $4 million a year if you're using straight line amortization kind of number. So, in the context of 180 housing units, are we talking about a $1.5 million per unit kind of assumption, or what are these numbers like?
Yeah, I can take that. So the assumptions are very conservative in a number of ways. The 180 is actually 60% of what they have planned to build. So it's already a low number in terms of an assumption of what we need to cover this debt service. You asked about, an amortization schedule. We don't know the actual terms yet because we have not done the actual financing, taken out the instruments yet. We used pretty conservative estimates of those interest rates, and that was again vetted by the Vermont Economic Progress Council. And the development agreement itself holds it to that minimum. So even if those units aren't built on the schedule that we've currently all been predicting, they've agreed to pay that property tax beginning in a certain year, in 2025, I believe, regardless. And that's going to cover that debt service, start covering that debt service. There might be another question in there that I missed.
Well, I mean, the first question was, could you actually put some numbers on this? So again, if we're looking at a debt service on a straight line basic assumption, and correct me if that assumption is completely off base, of $4 million a year, and you're looking at, roughly speaking, at the kind of tax numbers that you're currently facing in Killington, at about a $300 million kind of property valuation to support that. So how does that, is that roughly within the ballpark, or is this something totally different?
No, it's so it's not straight amortization. So because some of the assumptions are that we'd be using an interest-only mechanism for a few years. One of the other, so a number of years of lower interest-only payments, and that's because it takes a while for increment to build up. Your debt service starts right away. So it's frequently used in a TIF district to do interest-only payments for a little while. Let me just pull up this tab here on one of my spreadsheets. You're right, it gets to about $4 million.
I think Michael said at the last meeting that he was guaranteeing starting off at $2.5 million up to $4 million.
Right. Yeah, it starts at 2.5, basically to 2.6, and ramps up to 4.2, 4.3 for the majority of the years. And that's to pay down, again, the debt service, making the assumption on principal and assumptions baked in about interest.
So essentially you're saying that the contract is between the town of Killington and Great Gulf, and the town of Killington essentially is taking Great Gulf as a guarantor of this debt?
Correct.
And so, and the way that this contract is structured essentially is independent of the assumptions. Again, if we're talking about
180 units, we're talking about a 1.5 million per unit assumption for the sales price to meet the kind of $300 million number that would make these numbers work. But you're saying that effectively Great Gulf is guaranteeing that 47 million plus interest as a, whatever the entity is that's actually doing this?
Yeah, essentially, and it's a gross number. Yeah, it was derived at based on a per unit assumption that we worked out talking with the assessor's office as well as with Great Gulf. But yeah, it's the whole that they're guaranteeing, and
so,
it runs with the land.
And so again, to make this work, you're looking at $300+ million numbers, that ultimately have to come from this project onto the grant list.
Not really.
295 million is the number. 295 million.
Do we know, is it clear, or is it going to be made public to the town who the actual guarantor is? Is this some kind of entity that Great Gulf is creating? Is it the master company of Great Gulf? Who will be the guarantor of this revenue flow to the town?
At this present time, it's Great Gulf, USA 2007, I think it is, Michael?
It's an entity.
Entity.
It's an entity listed in the development agreement.
So it's an entity that's being created for this development. It's not the general credit of Great Gulf as a master company?
Correct. Yeah, that's how these partnerships are put together.
You know that, Andre.
I'm asking the question.
Yeah, I know, but I'm answering.
And so again,
it's also tied to the property at the same time, Andre.
What does that mean?
It does run with the property. So if Great Gulf were to sell it, it would run with the property.
So you're saying that the town will have first lien, so to speak, on the value of that property?
Well,
That doesn't say that. That says if they sell it.
right.
Okay, the person, if you buy a piece of property, Andre, if you buy it, I hope your lawyer is looking at what's in the deed and the title, and there's encumbrances in it.
And will the detail of all these guarantees and contracts be made available to the town prior to the vote, or is this going to be something that's in more detail?
The current details, the development agreement is on the website for I don't know how many months at this point, Andre.
At least at the first perusal, it wasn't clear that the actual language regarding the 47 million plus interest guarantee is in that agreement, or is that not correct?
It's the number. I think the number is in there. I think, and the 295 million number is in there, which is the property value.
Basically, the property value is increased. It's not a guarantee, like they're not making the payments on the bond. The land value goes to that. The tax bill is due every year, and they've agreed to the increased assessment.
But again, if the assumptions fall through in terms of selling these units, who's ultimately responsible for this?
But Andre,
it's still the
let's
property
stop.
tax.
Let's say they build no units the first 6 years. I think that's what you're getting. There's no units, okay? So how do you get the money to pay the bond? I think that's your question. And
that's a version of the question.
okay, and I believe what we're saying here that you may not be hearing is that Great Gulf has said raise the value of the land to equal the payment of the bond at that time. So if the first payment or whatever, when we get there, is $2.5 million, I'd have to sit down with somebody and figure out how much money the land has to go up in value, with 70% of the funds coming from and 85% of the funds coming from the town. So 70 from the education, and we'd have to work that number out and say, Michael, this is what the value of the property is going up because you haven't sold a unit yet. And then we've had this conversation back on January 30th where I kind of put these guys on a spot or whatever that, if they were not to pay the taxes that year, it's going up for a tax sale, which is not going to happen. And Michael will laugh and smile. It's not going to happen because Art already asked these questions on January 30th and walked away with a okay understanding. And if it did go up for a tax sale, Andre, you and I can go in and buy it in a tax sale and then raise the lease money back to the ski resort, which Mike Salamano is going to say that's not going to happen because the land is worth more than the taxes. That's what we heard on January 30th, right, Solomano and Snade? They're both shaking their head yes.
I actually listened to the meeting on January 30th, so I have some understanding of this, I think. The part that I didn't understand from that previous discussion was essentially the town is going to be obligated to the tune of, a total combination of interest plus debt payment of 80 million or so. So ultimately, if the project fails, what you're saying is that the last barrier of defense for the town taxpayers is that this land of the project that didn't meet the assumptions is going to be worth more than 80 million. Is that the right understanding?
Yeah. It's going to be worth $285 million.
Well, it'll be worth whatever the market pays for it, but presumably you're saying that it'll be worth over the cost that's being incurred by the town on this bond.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Andre. Any other questions on, if Andre wants to lower his hand? There. Anybody else online wants to ask a question? Going once, twice, 3 times? I'm going to look to the audience. Does anybody have a question here, starting from the left side? Ken Wanza?
Are there any plans, conversations being had regarding the overhead power communications?
So the question is, are there any plans about the communications and overhead power? And I believe up in the ski resort area from just above the lookout, where the main transformer there, that is not on the town and that's not in this cost. Great Gulf and the resort is burying that power at that point there. From the Killington Road of Anthony Way to Route 4, I was with Green Mountain Power 3 weeks ago now, because we're going to do that road at that point. It will be overhead, but it will be prepped if the town, if this project ever did take off really well, and we could then bury the power later on if needed be, or if wanted to by the taxpayers. Does that answer the question?
Any between?
Well, then we start from down there, and then you could work your way up as that stuff comes online.
We have looked into it, just to do a study on it. I think was
170.
I thought it was 275 or something like that.
Yeah,
just to do a study.
And the first price that I was given was $30 million to bury the power from Route 4 to the end of what the town owns as a road, which is right by the lookout. This is one of, Chris will get into this because he's been saying this for I think over a decade. This is one of the largest electrical lines
at the time, yeah.
In the state of Vermont. I mean, it's a lot of power. So, but we've looked at it, and I don't know.
We've talked to Green Mountain at great length and understood what their problems are and building redundancy within the system so that we do have great stable power. But it's some pretty high powered juice up there.
We are prepping things. I don't know, maybe somebody 10 years down the road might say, hey, this thing's already paid off. We raised the grand list. It's $30 million. It's $1 million a year plus interest. Maybe voters then want to do it, but this board felt, no, not at this time.
All right, fair enough. And then I've got another question too. There's an Exhibit D in the agreement with Grey Gulf, and it provides for a construction schedule, overall project schedule.
So Stephanie, the question, if you can't hear, is a Schedule D in the development agreement. There's a construction schedule.
And an overall project schedule.
And an overall project schedule. I don't have the development agreement in front of me. Do you? Can you speak to that?
What's the question?
The question is, okay, coming in reference to those 2 tables, okay, are we on track? And if so, who is tracking that?
So are we on track to that schedule, and who is tracking it?
We are, and me. No, it's a combination of all of us. So yes, we are on track with that schedule, and that's subject to change. And the biggest determinant of that change is supply chain. and labor, with the construction environment being what it is. We can only control so much, but we're staying on that schedule. There's a project team that consists of select board members, myself. We have this new construction contract owner's project manager on the schedule, as well as the engineers. So all of that team is ensuring that we're staying on schedule with permits, with the construction bidding process, with the financing, et cetera.
So
Is that schedule being tracked on a software program?
at this time,
It's
it's not, at this time, it's not being tracked on a software program. It's us meeting with the water folks and with VHB. The biggest schedule that's on my mind, and I say it's the last roadblock, is
Article 5.
March 7th.
Right. Okay,
So
assuming
Assuming-
that this goes forward,
Right.
okay, are we ready
So
to
that's-
start in accordance with the schedules that are in this agreement? Because the agreement, there's contingencies in here
Right.
which are rescheduled.
And the answer is yes, we're on schedule for it. And the other answer is that with a yes vote of March 7th, then that gets into this PCI that is only hired on now or whatever for this negotiating part you through. And then they're the ones that are going to be making sure, and they're going to be between the town and these contractors and the engineers. Right now, for us to do, we're working on a yes vote and keeping everything on track.
And just to follow that up, in March, we are ready to put the first 3 contracts out to bid. Assuming a positive vote, they will immediately be going out. We are
Which
at
is to that
100%.
schedule.
Yeah, we're at 100% on the drawings, ready to put it out for bid.
With the start of construction in April.
That's correct. Well,
June.
June's the construction.
This says April. That's where I'm going. I'm trying to see if we're on
So the
track
start,
with this.
yeah, so the start of construction can be started clearing land and everything?
Yeah.
Can-
We're talking about building.
Yeah, so we're talking actual building and stuff. You gotta clear the land first. So we're already on track. I've already spoken to a local excavating company that can start work, and I think we all know them.
And is there a master schedule between the Waterline Road project and Great Gulf?
Between.
That's
Go ahead, Steph.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're working on right now. That's in process.
So,
And you're,
so
as soon as, yeah,
are the town people going to get to see this schedule periodically on how we're doing?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm asking, I'm just
yeah,
looking to
no,
make sure that this is
Yeah.
all moving forward.
Yeah.
We talked a great deal about finances, I
Right.
get that.
yeah,
Okay, but now that also, works with the schedule.
right.
Okay, schedule, you can do manpower loading with resources, availability of materials, et cetera. and
We'll be
just making
meeting,
sure
I
that
mean,
it's
one of the
staying on
things
track
is
and
with
resolved.
PCI, we'll be meeting, what is it, bi-weekly, whatever?
Thursday, I think, is our next
That's
one.
where we hired.
We have one Thursday, so we're just starting that. And then it will be at that point, once we have a yes vote and we're all through this, that is not executive session stuff, that's open meeting stuff.
Good.
And you'll be welcome, because you enjoy that kind of work.
I do.
You'll be welcome.
I have.
To
I did.
to join us, as Kenny over here too, maybe would like to sit in on it or whatever. So it will be open meetings at that point there.
Thank you.
Art?
As long as we get into the weeds on construction, I'm assuming that this is high-pressure pipe that we'll be using?
Correct. Certain sections.
Where is that coming from?
The pipe? You mean buying the pipe?
Where is it being manufactured?
Sweden. There's one section of it is in Sweden.
And does that present any
No,
supply
because-
chain
because we-
timing issues?
No, because we're gonna have a yes vote on March 7th, and we wait the 30 days, because you have to wait 30 days in order to start borrowing money. That's the reason why you have to wait 30 days. And once it gets going, we'll be putting that stuff on order. We know the lead time could be 8 months and further out, but we're also shown that this is going to be a 23, 24. So one would be needing to be doing the ditching and then there's the pump house and the well house, a whole bunch of other stuff. So The pipe will be just in time for us when we need to be putting it in to get to that 24 timeline. But then if the engineer was here, Wayne Elliott, that's just the main section that's that, and then there's the rest of the line that comes down the.
Coming down is not the high pressure. That's for the uphill stuff.
That's for uphill.
And basically, the first year's schedule is to build the well house, the pump house, clearing all the land, getting the access roads in so that it's ready for construction, but we will not have all of that work done in this construction season. That will be into the 24 season, which will then be, we will be able to excavate and actually put the pipe in. And based on where we are right now today with the lead time, we are going to be on schedule.
Okay, we're all comfortable, everybody's comfortable with that.
Yes.
The other question is, what work is that, it says that Six Peaks is going to start work, construction work in 2023?
I'll leave that to Michael.
Yeah, what work is actually going to be done?
Yeah, there you go.
Parking lot.
In advance, if we can get it all ready in 2023, given where we are in the schedule right now. But the plan is to build the stormwater retention pond, so the new Killington Road will generate additional water coming down, and that has to be, and the new village will generate more water flowing down, and that all has to go into a stormwater detention pond so that it is held, and so that the some of the solids like sand and salt and so on don't go into the water course. So that will be built along with the first section of resort parking that will be relocated from where the village is right now, the Snow Shed and Ram's Head parking lots, down to the new location a little bit further north along Killington Road. So the first phase of that will be started in later in this year.
And at that point, Michael, the parking is, that's because you're building that parking down there. That's because you must have parking if you take one away. The parking's not going away in 23, 24.
No, the agreement is that we replace every parking stall that we build upon with another parking stall, and our plan is not just replace it, but to put it in place before we remove the existing parking stall.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions out here on this side of the room? Patrick? No?
None?
Jonathan?
None, guy? Come on.
Art, do you have another question, or is that just left off? There you go, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else have questions online? Well, we have everybody here, and there's a lot of people from town. Before you kick off here, Stephanie, Chris Lahart is here, and if you could just chime in and tell us when he started for the town and what he is.
Well, good evening. How is everybody? Can you hear me at least this
yes,
time?
Yes, we can. Now we can't hear you.
I am the new fire chief in town.
Okay.
And I started on, took over on January 1st and started showing up with regularity around the 16th. And I'm happy to be here. It's definitely been eye-opening, but the support that I've gotten from the organization has been excellent so far. We're currently working on charting our mission and vision for the future and working on some succession planning.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
Great.
So,
If there's no more questions, can
yeah, so Jennifer,
am I okay? Can you hear me?
why don't you come up here?
Okay. Thank you. If there's no further questions, I just wanted to make a comment. My name is Jennifer Yanantoni, and I'm Chair of the Planning Commission. And I wanted to thank the Select Board and Chet and Lisa and Stephanie and the Michaels. This has just been a it's just been a really great process. It's a lot of the amount of work that's gone into this, and the thoroughness with which you've all researched and put together this proposal has been amazing. And Anecdotally, I grew up in Killington. I am a second-generation business owner in Killington. I was chair of your school board for 15 years and have now been on the planning commission for 2 years. And I used to say that I got on the school board with a singular mission that I would keep Killington Elementary School open. And that was at a time where we had less than 60 kids in the elementary school. And we now have nearly 140, and the school's sort of bursting at the seams. So I got off the school board because that mission was accomplished. And my next mission is really to make this town a place that 15 or 20 years from now, my 2 children will want to come back to and will want to take over my business because the opportunity is so immense. And this is the sort of, this will fundamentally change the opportunities and the course of this, the future of this town. And I really encourage everybody to vote yes for Article 5. It's a really incredible opportunity the state is giving us, and I thank everybody who's worked so hard on putting this before the voters. So, thank you very much.
Thanks. So since we're done with this section, Stephanie, do you have anything to add in?
Nope.
Okay, so.
Just keep your eye on the,
Yeah,
Facebook, 'cause
so,
they've got
so I know.
Polly on doing a report out.
Yeah, Polly's gonna report out. I mean, one of the things that I've also, since we're at the end of this here, and it's kind of funny, like, a lot of people are talking about, workforce housing, market rate housing. It has so many different names, and I'm told it all means the same, and we need it here in the town of Killington. The last time we had conversations on January 30th, and I had said we're working on something and we'd like to come out soon and say something, and I said give us a month or whatever. I think we're like a day or two away from being able to come out and make what we've been talking about in some executive sessions underneath real estate and contracts. And Chris and I will be up at the it's at the Killington Grand Hotel. At what time, Mike? 5 o'clock? 5 p.m.?
Yep.
And I
Thursday.
think they're putting on a little KPAA, Michael Salamano, Michael Schneid presentation, and I'm hoping that Chris and I are going to be able to have our work done tomorrow so that we can come out on Thursday and make an announcement on the affordable market rate housing, workforce housing. So that's all I got. And I think Mike's giving out drinking tickets again, so.
Yeah, just to give you a quick update, Thursday we are doing a community meeting at the Grand. Everybody's invited. It's a little different than, sometimes we do, I usually do an update on what's happening at the resort. I think this time it's going to be a little different. It's going to be kind of me recapping, so the last 10 years, what we've accomplished, at least in my view, and kind of leading into kind of what's going to take place with the village, and then Michael will speak afterwards about that. And some of it might be similar to what you hear tonight, but obviously we're in support of this, and we just want to kind of put our spin on kind of how we see the past and the future, and that's kind of the gist of what we're trying to talk through at that meeting Thursday. So I look forward to seeing you all there.
Thanks a lot, Mike. So
Thanks.
with no more questions on that, we're done with number 6. I'm going to move on to item number 7, Town Hall Purchase Ballot Article Discussion. You want to take it from there? This is where we probably lose like 3/4 of our guests.
So, where'd it go?
Jim, did you say that was 5:30?
6 o'clock Thursday.
I thought 5 o'clock.
Oh, 5 o'clock, I'm sorry,
What
5.
are you telling me?
I said 5, and then you threw a 30 in.
So, we'll just read the ballot article real quick. Article 4, shall general obligation bonds or notes of the town of Killington in the amount not to exceed $1,600,000, subject to reduction from available state and federal grants and aid, and the application of available reserves to be financed for a period not to exceed 10 years, and be issued for the purposes of purchasing and renovating the property at 2046 US Route 4 to become the new town hall. Basically, I just wanted to give everybody a little history. You know, the town hall, we've been looking at it. We actually had a study done to analyze, you know, what was our space needs, what was the condition of the building, and should we be renovating that building and/or moving forward with a new facility. Basically, for any of you who have been to Town Hall recently, you'll see 3 orange posts along the side of the property. That is actually where the federal land begins and the town land ends. Our parking lot actually goes outside of our property. And we have a 50-year-old wastewater system, which will be very complicated to rebuild. And we've been looking at what are all the options. And we had done, and I'm going to put this up where's the date? In fiscal year 2019, we had done this plan looking at when and what would the cost be for the future town hall. Basically, at that time, we predicted it at $3 million. Obviously, this is before all of the new price increases. And we had already planned in fiscal year 2025 for the first payment to take place, which means starting the construction in fiscal year 2024. One of the things that we want to point out here is that was for a $3 million facility. We're talking about $1.6 million. This debt service was over 25 years, I believe. 30 years, actually. So we're basically looking at a payment that's about the same, maybe about $10,000 more than we had projected, but taking it out for only 10 years. In addition, we will have, and the reason for that is we have a tenant in the building, which is paying $72,000 a year, which reduces the amount that the town has to pay. And we will end up with a facility that will be larger than what we have, and be able to serve all of the town needs in a centralized location where everybody visits, and it is actually the entrance to the town. So when the opportunity arose, the select board decided to move forward with the opportunity. We looked at what the costs were, and we looked at how this will affect the budget. One of the reasons this plan was actually put in place for that year is there are 3 bonds coming mature in that year. 2 small ones from the golf course and the 10-year bond for the highway that we did in 2014. It will mature in 2024, which equal basically the payments that we had planned for the net. And the one positive we have, the town voting for this ballot article will not increase the tax rate, because if we make this purchase in April, we will be able to fund it so that our payments are due in August the following year, and we'll actually start the payments in the year that it was originally planned. And if you look in the book for this year, and everybody should be starting to receive the book, the tax rate for the year we're in currently was projected at 5,480, and the projected tax rate for the coming year is 5,472. It's actually slightly less, and basically if we're deferring the payment for 4 months to put it into the right fiscal year, we will be able to do the new town hall, all of the work that we have planned for the town, some of the additional things like the new firefighter, the new police officer, and all of those things with no net increase.
Well, most other towns are talking about 6, 8, 10, I think I heard 16% increase to their tax rates at this time. So, I mean, and I believe when this was first done in 2000 and what?
It was done in 2018 because it was for the fiscal year 2019.
Right. But this whole budget-wise was available back then.
Yeah, we actually showed it at all of our meetings, and we continually show it because these were the predicted tax rates.
Right.
And technically, for the fiscal year 25, with the changes that we were doing, there was a prediction of a 0.65 tax rate, and we're 0.546.
So we've been holding close and tight and keeping it underneath. We came out with the plan, and it was And it was, at that time, it was Patty McGrath,
Yeah.
Steve, and myself, along with Chet. And we came up with a plan to move this town, kind of coincident, and now it's called Killington Forward or whatever. You know, but that was the plan back in 2018 to do that, to make moves. And then all of a sudden, the TIF came up. And the TIF really, once again, is going to help keep that tax rate down, because in this plan here shows that we were gonna have to be doing sections of the road and the sidewalk. And a yes vote gets us, you don't have, you know, it's gonna be paid from new development up above. So, go ahead, Patrick.
Quick question, Patrick Cushing from town, learned to say my name too.
Yeah.
Chet, you're just saying that the, so like the $90,000 increase to the police budget to get a new cruiser and person, that becomes a net wash for the town?
Yes, because of the debt restructuring that's happened, the carryover we had this year, the increased options tax funds.
Yeah.
And we had one other deferral for 4 months of a loan payment, and we ended up carrying over $378,000 this year.
And that goes...
That goes right against the tax rate.
Right,
That's why it's low.
and moving forward, like the tax rate, effectively, like with that, we're increasing the, you know, the staff of the town and the response and all that without actually affecting tax rate.
We're basically we're on a stale grand list.
Yeah.
It's not moving.
Right.
So the tax rate's the same. We just have other funds coming in different ways in the planning, and we had said back then, we weren't gonna move on something until we had some bonds going away. So we wanted to say, hey, this bond's going away, we're gonna move forward on something else.
And
So grow the town without having to increase the tax rate.
And if you look at this right here, at the fiscal year '24, one of the things that we're not gonna be starting to make, that was a $600,000 a year payment, was for the first part of the Killington Road reconstruction,
Right.
which isn't gonna happen, which is why our tax rate's down. So our tax rate's staying that way because we're gonna be able to build this with TIF money and education funds.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
So is that it on that? Have a good one, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, unless there's any questions
Thank
about,
you.
you know, the planning and the need and all of that, that was all. I just wanted to point that out for everybody.
Go back to this full screen of people. Any questions on this from the folks online?
Whoever's left.
How many people are left? 17.
Oh, it's pretty...
Anybody have any questions on this? Online, we're going once, going twice.
No hands.
Gone. Anybody in the audience? Going once, twice, gone. We're done with number 7. We're jumping to number 8 now. Local hazard mitigation plan adoption.
Yeah, for the last, it's close to a year, there's been a committee made up of the planning commission, a planning commission member, our planning consultant, myself, and a fire chief and one other. Oh, the staff from Rutland County. And we worked on the local hazard mitigation plan. It's required by the state. It's for planning for future disasters and things of that nature. We completed a draft, presented it to the select board in November. And upon their approval, it was sent to the state for review before we do final adoption. We've gotten the comments back from the state, made the adjustments, so it's an approvable document, and we are asking that the select board now adopt the program, and it would be just basically nominating the select board chair to sign.
Okay, I'll make a motion for the select board chair to sign the local hazard mitigation adoption plan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let's hand it off to Steve tomorrow.
Yep. Golf financials, nothing exciting to report at this time. Obviously, it's not been
Pretty flat.
open. We've already done our analysis of cash flow. But, you know, the one thing that I just want to point out is we're still in a very good position from a cash position. We still have $478,000, and we are still paying, you know, our monthly bills, and we will not need to borrow money again this year. So I think all things are working the way they're supposed to.
How are we looking with getting the equipment we had on order?
Well, we're still, the one that we ordered a year and a half ago, we still don't have, and we're just we're waiting to hear. You know, actually, and we're gonna be looking at some of the new order stuff here in the next couple of weeks, so when we have another meeting.
Have an update from them. Good.
From the town perspective, basically, this is we call it a tweener month. We have our final tax payment coming in February 15th. People are starting to make those, so, you know, we'll know exactly where we are at that point, but there hasn't been anything extravagant. The only item that's gone different than it's gone in the last year was the options tax receipts. This last time were slightly down. But the one thing that Lucretia noted was that the number of receipts were way down, so we're not sure that, based on the timing of it, that everybody reported
We had that
on time.
conversation when the report came
Yeah.
out, and it was somewhere around 70 less, I believe.
In returns?
Yeah.
Returns,
Yeah.
actual returns.
Yeah, so,
So the money you get is from people that, when they file the return, and they may have missed it, and then they catch up, and the next time goes up or whatever.
so,
Well,
well,
once again, when we worked on this budget, we did not hit, because we were like going crazy, 35, 40%, 50% over, and we only jumped up about 20, 25%.
right.
So this is the same thing as Jeff Carr talking up at the state, who is the economist, and saying that he sees for state revenues on, you know, all the state money coming in, an 8% drop, but he's like, it's still like 25% higher than what they were talking about just last November because of the increases.
What was
So-
the period for?
It ends in, it's in January.
November something to February
So,
2nd.
February 2nd, that's what it was.
Just before Thanksgiving to February 2nd.
That's that was that.
That was this period.
And so, and we showed 70,000 less.
70 returns.
70 less
70
returns.
It was $16,000
Yeah.
less.
Oh, but there were 70 less returns.
Yes.
Yeah,
Weird.
I know. Very weird. I mean,
That's
it
a
was,
big number.
it was pretty dead December, like, it wasn't a lot going on in December, but this January has been very, very busy up here.
And we don't know if the year prior that there were people catching up in that period, so maybe that's the right number, but there are other people, if you're late on your rooms, meals, or alcohol tax, they're not giving you the money at that time, it's the person, you know, to the town. So they say,
Yeah.
this is how many people filed during the time. Someone might have filed later, you know, this was November, December, January?
Yes,
Right.
right.
Someone may have filed after like January 14th.
They might have filed the next, you
They
know,
might have
the
filed the next
following week.
day and then the next week and being on time because they only have to have it done by the end of January, so.
I think the number of returns is what is probably alarming there, but it's just, you know.
Yeah. Some people file quarterly, some people file monthly. So they have numbers in there for up to like January 14th, but
Wow.
people didn't have to file January until until February. But why they had January, and then some people February did, you know, at the end of February. It's just the way
So
they
the
do
numbers
it.
we
Like,
get in February are good for for the month of January.
right, but they only had half of the month in the number.
Okay. Strange.
Yeah.
So, and basically, the treasurer's report shows a current balance of $7,088,000 with $2.9 million in restricted funds, and then the $5.7 that'll be due on June 1st. But we have another tax payment, and in addition, if you notice the ARPA grant, we're gonna be having to do that allocation. Right now, that's showing in the restricted fund, but should be moved over to the general fund. And also, with the the one grant, which was the rec grant, we now have the final documents, we can bill and put the $75,000 back in our account.
Back in the account.
And then the same thing is basically happening, sort of, with the water loan, which is another $90,000 that comes back into our account that we've already expended. So that's about $500,000 just in those three things.
Right.
Yep.
So everything's tracking the way it should, and
And that's why, by statute, the select board is able to borrow funds in anticipation of funds coming in. So we had like the bike trail that the state approved us They approved us for how much?
$75,000.
$75,000, and they just take a while to get you the check. We're guaranteed it, but we had to get the work done. We got the work done, so it came out of the general fund. So that's why it made, and then all of a sudden now they're gonna replace it like in the next probably couple of months.
Yeah, I would expect in the next 2 months. Well, that one we'll have, because we actually have the executed document. We're still waiting for the water one.
And then when we started this water before the TIF or whatever to do an investigation, has nothing to do with the TIF. We get a grant to do this first engineering work or whatever.
Yeah.
And we have that money coming on our way, so. You need a motion to approve the
Yeah.
golf financials, January
please.
golf and January town financials?
Yes.
I'll make that motion. Chris,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
We've got the manager's report, Route 4 sewer pump purchase.
Yes, we have had one of the pumps at the station down at the bottom of Killington Road start to have some issues. These pumps are 24 years old. We have talked in the past about making sure we upgrade a couple of the pumps. There's 2 pumps in each station. We have 4 60-horse pumps and 2 30-horse pumps between the 3 pump stations. We are going to, what I'm recommending is that we're going to purchase the 60-horse pump for $27,000 and one 30-horse pump at $18,000 and put a new pump in 2 of the pump stations, taking the old ones out to see if they're rebuildable and keeping them as spares at this point, with the intention of, in a year or so, buying a 3rd new pump for the upper station. Currently, the restricted fund for the Route 4 sewer.
So while you're working on this, while you're pulling that up, this fund or these pumps, they're being charged to those that are on the Route 4 sewer line. This has nothing to do with.
This comes out of the restricted fund for the Killington Road Route 4 sewer.
A taxpayer that's not on this sewer line has never made any money payments to this reserve fund.
Currently, this reserve fund has $308,000 in it.
Right. So you're just asking us to approve
Those purchase of those 2 pumps.
purchases with the money that they paid in their O&Ms.
That's correct.
Only those that are on there.
That is correct.
I'm only driving because that's the same situation that we're gonna be going with the
Yeah,
water system.
this is going to be exactly the same type of scenario.
I'll make a motion to move forward with the suggested purchase order of the 2 pumps that you stated, one at 27 and one at 18.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have a discussion, just wanted to bring the select board up to speed on the fire department capital. First of all, before Chris had started on January 1st, we were talking about some of the budget issues and looking at some of the costs. But we have the pumper is a 2009, I believe, and it's basically, and Chris, you can hear me, and I'll defer to you here in a minute. That is due to be replaced, and in the budget that we have completed, it is scheduled for the first payment to be made in the 2025 year, but they take 18 months to get. So what we're looking at is starting to get on the process to get the order together and looking at the planning. And in addition, we have the light rescue, which is well beyond its life. And we did talk about replacing it with an ambulance that we will not be doing transport in, but it doesn't cost that much more to go to an ambulance. And I had budgeted the $250,000 for that this year. And also, I learned, and Chris will expand, we had in this budget a couple years ago to buy some turnout gear. It hadn't been purchased yet, so we currently still have the $90,000 in the restricted fund, and there's an approximately I had $40,000 budget, it looks like it's gonna be about $48,000, but I'll defer to Chris, and he can bring you up to speed on what we found and some of the things that we're looking to make a purchase on.
Before Chris goes in, this is going back to 2018, putting sustainable budget together.
Right.
Every year we allocate funds into, it's always pretty much the same amount of money to the fire department, and it's broken out into the different pieces of equipment
Right.
to be spent.
Right. And the goal, with the goal of, we do the 5-year leases and we're able to keep the flow going so we don't get way behind.
So this is nothing of a shock. It was planned and the dollars there, which makes the rate stay stable.
Right, and the only thing that is not in this plan at this time that we're discussing, because the hope was we were gonna be able to use the old light rescue as a vehicle for a chief to use to go start doing their inspections and do their work, which is not gonna be the case because of its current condition. And it turns out that we will be able to get on a very similar price point, basically what the same as the cruisers. They do them for fire as well, and they set them up that way, and we're looking at pricing that out and possibly leasing one of those, which would still fit in the budget, but it's not in there today. But just wanted to bring you up to speed that these are things we're looking
Down the line.
to do, that we're gonna have to start now to do. So Chris, you can go ahead and give us your update on what they are and what the situations are.
Yeah, I went ahead and with my first month here, I've just been kind of looking at all the different programs. And I started with the ones that directly affect operations, and in particular, the personnel and the equipment that they use to mitigate emergencies. The PPE, meaning the turnout gear, the coats, the pants, the helmets, and the gloves, they typically have a 10-year shelf life from the date of manufacture, depending on levels of contamination, holes, etc. And that's a national standard that's been developed. The fire department had more than 10 members in expired turnout gear, some of it between 8 to 12 years out of date, which opened the town up for quite a bit of liability on an emergency scene. So we, working with Chet in the town, we've got some vendors coming in to rectify that immediately and get the folks in some protection that they needed. In evaluating the trucks themselves, we have a really good fleet out there between the ladder, tanker, the heavy rescue, and the mini pumper. But the 2009 engine is actually too long for some of the infrastructure in town by roads and getting in and out of some tight jams. Those fire trucks are usually there for 10 to 15 years, and 2009, we're pushing its life, plus it's just not usable outside of the main drags on Route 4, Route 100, and the access road. And then when we get in some of the places like Killington Mountain Lodge or up in some of the other establishments, the truck is just a monster to try to turn around. It's got a heck of a turning radius. So that was one of the first trucks that I wanted to try to replace with something. But I thought it would be good as a reserve piece, because that's something that the town currently doesn't have when we have a truck go out for maintenance. The other day, our primary response piece went out for maintenance, and we don't have a plan B that doesn't require me taking 2 trucks. And that would be our little mini truck and a tanker to go with it. So we could probably keep and get another few years out of that truck as a maintenance reserve, or if something went down, another unit that could potentially be put in service. The light rescue 2 is an excursion, and I had a bill from Ford to try to fix everything that's wrong with it. It's just not worth the investment. But we can still benefit and use it to ferry some people for training, and perhaps cart around the KSAR trailer and just keep that truck until it blows up, and then use it as a piece of training material if the town will let me. But also looking ahead real quick, a lot of the other programs look like they're really in good shape. The self-contained breathing apparatus, those have a shelf life for 15 years, and we currently have 20 SCBAs that have a pretty good life expectancy left. Those units cost about $1,300 a pop, and we have 20 of them in service. And as long as they pass flow testing and hydrostatic testing, I don't anticipate any problems with them. About the only other thing on the horizon that I have would be some communication expenditures, which I've just got a couple of radios that are obsolete. They're not making parts for them anymore. But I mean, I can replace them as a non-capital item.
Okay.
So, I mean, this is just a manager's report giving
Yeah,
us an
the only-
update. It's already in the budget. It's already in a capital.
The only thing that's not in the budget that I would ask for direction on is looking at a chief's vehicle that we will be able to have for doing all of this running around, which would be basically like
I was just thinking of the
an
2009 that's ready to blow up.
Where are we gonna, if we're gonna hang on to pieces, where are we gonna garage?
Well, when he mentioned that, I was like, I don't know yet. We'll have to have that conversation.
What's in the garage on River Road? Anything?
Well, that's a conversation for down the road. I think they're doing an inventory shortly.
Well, how much property does the fire department have on River Road? And is it maybe looking into later on in your capital budget of expanding a building that you can put some more equipment there?
Well, that's one of the things that actually has been discussed with the fire department while we were doing this transition, is do they want to maintain ownership of that, or do they want it to come to the town? And if the town were to take it, we would then be looking at, okay, what are we going to use it for? And it would take a renovation or building a new small little metal building to
It's soon to be
house that.
determined that you guys are working it
We're
out.
working on the inventory, and we're gonna look at what the
So I think it
options
would
are.
be good to see a comprehensive plan.
Yeah, this is-
of where we can go for the
Yeah.
next few years.
Right, but the one truck that you're talking about to put on order is 18 months, I think I heard.
Yeah.
So we have 18 months to find where we're gonna put it as a storage one, or whatever. So,
Yeah, it's just, this is all conversation, like, the idea of keeping the older one wasn't part of the original discussion. It's just like, okay, can we?
yeah.
And then we'll
Yeah,
look at.
can we, do we have a place for it, and at what cost?
Right,
And
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 that's
it's
the
gonna just
question.
rust out more if we
Yeah,
just leave
no,
it outside.
exactly. If it's not gonna get used and collect dust,
Yeah, no,
doesn't
and-
make sense to hold on to stuff.
Right now, we're
We
looking
saw what
at,
happened at the golf course with that.
exactly.
So right now, really, you already got in your budget to work. It's 18 months to get the one
Yep.
truck, whatever, go. And you really need direction from us to replace a 2009 emergency vehicle? I don't
Well,
think my car is
technically-
older than 16.
Technically, we can do the official approval when I get the lease documents that you're approving the lease, because it is in excess of the
Yeah, I mean,
40,000.
I'll make
But-
a motion that you
Well-
move forward, come with the documents to us, so
Right.
we have it in front of us.
Yeah, I think we should discuss whether we should lease or purchase.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't,
so.
see
And
where it's
those are,
at.
these are the, yeah, we have to
Yeah.
do the comparison, and I bring that to you.
Yep.
It doesn't
But
even-
I'm just letting you know we're going that
We're
direction.
just giving you direction to
Yeah.
bring
Right.
forward to us, the plan.
Yep,
I don't think anybody here is gonna argue over replacing a 2009 emergency vehicle.
No.
My luck, I'd have a call at my house and the thing would break down that day.
right. It just was, that's the one item that wasn't in the purchase plan that,
Right.
So,
I
So just
think
bring
though,
the
when
paperwork.
the
though.
2000, when you're gonna get rid of the excursion, get rid of it.
oh, I agree. like,
That's another one that should,
Unless he
they
wants
don't
to,
sit
if he
well.
wants to set it on fire, that's a different discussion.
They don't sit well.
So that's all I had for
Let's
that.
not
Thank
put it
you,
down at
thank
the
you, Chris,
top.
for coming
Yep.
in for that.
Thank you.
There's two other items that I had sent emails to you that came out after we put the agenda out. One is,
Do you have it on screen that you could share with everybody? You might
Here's
as
the
well.
assessment.
Risk assessment, second to the left.
Right, no, I know that. This is what we have another grant that we're applying for related to the TIF district. And this is another questionnaire that we get. And this is the question that we've gotten a couple of times in the last couple of years. Does your organization have a written accounting and financial reporting policy? We have not to this point. And before we sent this in, we wanted to present a standard VLCT
Okay.
basic accounting, auditing, and financial policy, which, I did email to you guys, that that, there it is. We'll put that up. That basically just talks about, we're gonna have it audited every
Out of
year,
them, so they
and who's responsible.
see it.
So monthly and annual financial reporting, it meets all the requirements that we need for these grant opportunities. It's a basic policy.
Basically how we operate right now.
But yeah, there's nothing
Right.
different than what we're doing.
Seeing a motion?
Just need a motion and then signatures on it.
Motion to accept the accounting, auditing, and financial reporting policy as written.
Aye.
And the final item was one that came out just the other day as well. It's the next phase of the state revolving loan application for additional funds for the SRF, also for the drinking water. This is the Step 3 drinking water loan application for construction. These are the loans that are part of the state revolving fund for all these types of water projects. And in many cases, you will get portions of them that are forgiven, and then the rest of it at very low interest loans. And this is just filling out the application, and the select board would need to make a motion and then sign it.
Make a motion for the town manager to move forward with the SRF water infrastructure.
I sign that page.
Yeah.
Grant, loan,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
That ends that.
So we're back now to number 13, which is number 12, citizens input. Eli, did you have your hand up and then take it down? Get on mute.
I did, because I don't have the agenda in front of me. It sounded like you were on your last item.
No,
So
we're
I'm
up
not
to,
sure.
we're up to citizens input.
Oh, okay, that's very appropriate then.
Yeah.
If I'm correct, there was an article in the Mountain Times several weeks ago stating that a town in northern Vermont, there was a legal ruling that taxpayers were allowed to vote in local elections. So I would like to see if that's under consideration in Killington, and has that, well, is that under any consideration here in Killington?
I would say that I wasn't aware of that until I read it in the paper the other day, where it's too late to get in for this election. So the board has put everything here, but come, in March, I guess we'll have a conversation since you're bringing it up.
Okay, just to let you guys know, I would vote for all of you. So.
As he laughs.
But okay, if you would consider that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens input online right now? Hearing none. Anybody out here? Oof. Other business? No? Do we have executive session? Please.
We have okay, then no.
Well, if you have something.
Well, we have a request related to personnel from our police chief.
Okay, so we're gonna go into executive session. Is the police chief here?
He was here, there he is.
Okay.
Whit, you're all there, right?
So we're gonna go
I'm
into
here.
executive session with Chief Montgomery.
Are you down the hall?
Yeah, I can walk down.
Yeah, you might as well come down.
No, stay on Zoom.
Yeah.
I'm
That way we can keep you out, for personnel. At, what time is it?
It
8:03.
8:03. Second it?
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.